unorganized,
inaccurate, or
sometimes unfair.
Definitely unfair.
inefficient.
it could be unfair.
Three words I would use is punitive,
Punishable.
Stupid. And
necessary,
And cruel.
Corrupt.
Could handle it better, depending on the circumstance.
Contradictory, unintended consequences, and necessary.
Like nowadays, yes, because it's harder to get away with violent crime. I feel like there's a lot more forensic evidence that can lead to incarceration.
It depends on where the location is at or the area. Like, for example, if it's a rough area, I think it's highly more increased.
Not necessarily. I feel like most people are incarcerated for federal crimes, such as like drug cases, but in violent, not so much.
I say yes. I think just because the world we live in right now, I guess you could say the opportunity for people to do stuff, they do it and then boom, you're in jail.
So on the state level, I feel like more people are incarcerated because a lot of violent crimes happen at one time and don't span across many states. And then I think on federal level, they're focused more on larger schemes. So like white collar crime that involves insurance scams or stuff like that is more dominated at the federal level.
So technically, possibly. It all comes down to whether or not they are labeled as violent in the system due to repeat offenses, as an example. There's a lot that goes into whether or not your crime is considered violent. It doesn't necessarily mean that you caused physical harm to another person. So we can have the label of violence when it may not have been a true definition of violence. So overall, I'd say over the majority of all of our correctional units, most of our offenders are not violent.
I feel like the purpose is to punish people for the crimes they did, but sometimes it can come across as people getting punished for stuff they didn't do, and the evidence sometimes goes hidden because they know people in power and they basically get a free pass, and other people get blamed for their charges instead of them. So sometimes it could be the right people and sometimes it's not.
I feel like it should be to reform, but right now I feel like it's just sort of to put away and like punish rather than reform.
I think the purpose is to reform people. So if they go in under some sort of hardship that caused them to create a crime, that when they come out, that they've learned and then they make better choices in the future.
Well, I feel like there had to be laws in place. People need to know what's right or wrong, depend on the situation, and that I think laws are in place just to follow the rules that everyone needs to follow and to make things right.
Unfairly make people think about what they've done. But I mean, my mom was in prison. She was in and out of prison and jail, and her sentence, I feel like her sentence was not as bad as what she was supposed to get. But the way that the guards treat the inmates and stuff, I don't know, I just feel like they could do it a lot better and treat
They're treated very poorly.
Yeah, and if they really want it to be effective as they want it to, they have an opportunity to make it be very effective, but the way that it's ran, it's not, and it's a cycle, because, a lot of people who have been in prison before always seem to go back, and I feel like that's a flaw in the system that they could fix. And
Well, in the name, it would be correcting behavior. It's corrective in intention and ideologically, right? In ideals, we would hope that it would correct behavior. And that looks like different things. That can look like rehabilitation as in correction, or just punitive action to correction. Really, to answer that question, it depends on how your worldview and how you view the system works. They can coexist. You can have punitive purposes to corrections at the same time as you have corrective, rehabilitative purposes. So that's the great thing about our nation, though, right? You can hold both of those opinions, and a system can operate under both of them.
right now, no. I feel like it's focused, it's very overcrowded, inefficient. It's not really doing anything to reform people. It's sort of just locking people up and then pushing them off to the side. Once they get out, there's changes that should be made to the corrections facility right now.
I think for the majority of inmates, the correction system can be effective. I think that there needs to be more focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment.
It depends on the situation, but most of the times I will say no. It depends on someone who committed the crime, or depends on the situation, or certain laws are in place, but not all laws should be more strict. It should be more freely, depends on the circumstance as well.
I say 50-50 because I feel like the way they treat some of the prisoners is inhumane. I feel like solitary confinement should not be a thing because it's basically you're a caged animal for 24 hours a day. Like, how do you expect people to survive and not go nuts in there? Like, it's gonna make people worse. Like, you're trying to punish them, but the punishment is only making them worse. And they should try to find like another way to do that instead of solitary confinement. But sometimes it is effective. Sometimes people come out and they change their lives around and they make a whole 180. But sometimes people are just, that's all they know, and they're in and out of prison systems.
I think it depends on the person, honestly.
Yeah, it
Like,
depends on the person.
Yeah, because, I mean, we talk about my mom. Was it effective on her? I mean, I guess. She hasn't been back since she's got released. But some people, it just doesn't, I don't know. I don't want to say it's like they want to go back, but it seems like they want to go back because they continue to do the stuff that they did before.
Doing stupid stuff that they already know they're going to get in trouble for, and they continuously do it to keep going back. I feel like
I think it's just a flaw in the system. They could like teach them better things and like better ways to live when they get released, and they don't. They just unfairly punish them and make them live in hell.
Like
basically.
I stated before, not getting the sentence they really deserve and just getting time for what they already done. But if they did it, let's say they did something like overly stupid, and you're getting sentenced to like a year, but you deserve like 5 years. How is that fair?
They're more worried on like justice for the family than like the well-being of the prisoner. And like I get in some circumstances like, yeah, the family needs justice, but if you want to make the world a better place, then you need to worry about the prisoner making them better too.
Or what's going inside the prison as well.
Yeah.
If you're measuring effectiveness through data and statistics, so recidivism, are we reducing crime of those who end up in prison? The answer would holistically be no, because it should not be that over 83% of people return back by year 9 of release. So if you're measuring it based on those hard and fast cold numbers, then I think the evidence would show that we're not as effective. If your measure of effectiveness is simply, are you removing people from being dangerous to society, then yeah, you are effective. So I think to answer that question, you have to identify what the goal you think corrections is, and that determines whether or not we're doing that well. So to provide a non-answer as an answer, which I hate to do, but it would be more accurate to say that we probably succeed at a lot that we do in corrections, but we also fail at a lot that we do as well. And it's correcting those mishaps that we really need to focus on. But it's putting attention toward the impact that incarceration or corrections has on people's lives, not just the offenders, and how it impacts our society as a whole, and particularly family members of those who are impacted by incarceration.